Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first edition of Ipswich Town Transfer Talk. I think that's what we're going to go with. Does what it says on the tin, doesn't it, Andy? The season is only, a fortnight gone since the season finished, but already we're into silly season. The summer speculation is upon us. We are trying to sort the fact from the fiction, as always, which is never easy. We've got our first couple of solid bits of transfer news to bring you. Andy, a couple of stories from you today. The most interesting one of which is Ipswich Town showing some interest in Peterborough United midfielder Jack Taylor. Tell us a little bit more, please.
It's definitely going to be called Ipswich Town Transfer Talk now, isn't it, mate? If that's how you've introed it, that's what it's called. You're right. This is very early in the day to be talking about transfers. Really, the season hasn't finished for everyone. Of course, there's still the playoffs ongoing, but clearly Ipswich are well underway with their transfer business. They've got a new head of recruitment. Has joined from Manchester United, Sam Williams, and they're all working to improve this squad for next season. One of the players they've certainly discussed fairly heavily, as I understand it, is Jack Taylor from Peterborough, a player a lot of us will have known from Posh's promotion in 2020-21. Proper all-round box-to-box midfield player, can tackle, can pass, can dribble, has got a bit of everything in there. 23 years old, has played a lot of football for them, both in League One and then the Championship, after originally signing from Barnet for £500,000, and was one of the standout players as they won promotion. Had things a little bit tougher in the Championship, just like everyone at Peterborough did. They've of course come straight back down, but no doubt one of the prized assets in the squad there at London Road. So certainly an interesting one, a fairly ambitious one. If it was something that was pushed right to the end, I would suggest.
Yeah, it certainly is ambitious. I think Peterborough were talking about knocking back £2 million offers for him after the promotion season. You'll have to remind me who's been linked with him since he's gone to Peterborough, but that's the sort of money that they were talking about him. But maybe the goalposts have moved a little bit following Peterborough's relegation. They're a club that got hit quite badly by the COVID situation. Is there a chance that Ipswich can poach a player from Peterborough once they've come down from the Championship with the American money that underpins Ipswich now? Is that a market is this a deal that can be done, in short?
I don't see why not. Do you? It's certainly one that they couldn't do 2 years ago, isn't it? This wasn't even wasn't in the ballpark of things they could do, but things have changed at Ipswich. It wouldn't be cheap, and the negotiations would be. I'm sure Darragh McAntony wouldn't make negotiations hugely easy for Ipswich. He's not going to want to lose one of his best players to a League One promotion rival, and also a team that in his, obviously on paper, he will look at it and see a team that finished 11th in League One and not really fancy letting one of his big assets move in that direction. So the negotiations would be difficult, but if it's one that they move forward with, they've clearly got other central midfield targets in there as well, in addition to Taylor. But if it's one they move significantly on, I don't see a reason why they couldn't get it done. There's another kind of moving part to this as well, Stu, in Tyrese Simpson, who a striker we've discussed at length. We know there's every chance he leaves Ipswich this summer, and understand Peterborough are keen on that as well. So that's another ball in play, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Peterborough do love to pick up a project striker and turn them into healthy profit further down the line. You look back at people like Dwight Gale and others over the years, so that might be another little bit to the negotiating strength of Ipswich Town, if indeed it gets to that. At this stage, it's just strong interest from Ipswich, but whether it progresses, we don't know. Central midfield is obviously an area that Kieran McKenna is looking to strengthen this summer. We've got Morsey and Evans looking like the first choice at the moment. They'll need some competition. Whether it's whether they go back in for Tyreek Backinson, who they've got an option to buy following his loan from Bristol City. There's obviously 3 younger players underpinning them in Harper, who comes back from his loan from Crewe, Cameron Humphreys and Idris El Mazouni as well. So how many central midfielders come in, and whether it is Jack Taylor, we shall wait and see. Another area of the team, the top priority this summer is up front, isn't it? Because Ipswich haven't got many strikers left. James Norwood has been released. Caden Jackson is still in negotiations about a new deal. Even if he stays, you wouldn't imagine he's going to be the first choice talisman. Joe Pigott, bit of an uncertain future following an underwhelming debut season. So you would imagine that the main striker, the main number 9 for next season is not in the building yet. And one player that you understand that they're interested in is Leicester striker George Hirst, another 23-year-old, much like Jack Taylor. Tell me a bit more about that one, Andy.
Yeah, we've seen George Hirst before, haven't we? He was in the Portsmouth side that finished they finished above Ipswich in the end, didn't they? I've lost track of last season, Stu. I've moved on. I think they did.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, striker, definitely an area of the team they want, and for that reason, I feel sure their list is very, very long in terms of the players they're looking at. But George Hirst is certainly on there. He fits a lot of the kind of profile, I think, that that Ipswich are after in terms of his age. He's a big boy. So I think he's 6'3". So there's definitely some interest there. That one was first reported by TWTD, but we understand that's indeed correct, and he is a player that's on the list. But I think it's very early in that striker search. I think there's a fair way to run in that one.
Not necessarily a key prime target, someone that's at the very top of that list. One of several strikers you imagine that they're looking at, and there's every chance that it's not just going to be one striker that Ipswich sign. They're probably going to need to sign a couple of players for that forward position, whether they're out and out strikers, whether they're ones that can play sort of a wide striker role, versatile ones that can also drop in and play as those number 10s. We don't know if Ipswich are going to play with 2 10s and 1 striker, or a proper front 3, do we? But they need to strengthen that forward unit as a whole, don't they? So I'm sure there'll be some very interesting names to emerge over the coming weeks when it comes to the top end of that pitch.
I think so. On Hirst, Portsmouth would be very keen to keep him. By all accounts, I think Danny Cowley liked him a lot. Very keen to keep him in the building. I think there's an acknowledgement that they might have competition for that from clubs with maybe a bit more spending power than them. But yeah, he grew into his season last year. He scored 15 goals for Portsmouth. All of them came after the start of November. So his goals record was 15 in 46. So 1 in 3. But once the first one went in, his record was 15 in 33. So it's closer to 1 in 2 in the second half of the season, once Cowley had really got his teeth into that side. So the second half of last season was really strong for him. He's had some struggles in the past. Rotherham had a season with them where he played 30 odd games and didn't score at all. His journey to Leicester, his parent club now, was from Sheffield Wednesday via Leuven in Belgium, which I believe is Leicester's sort of sister club in the Belgian football pyramid. He's had an interesting journey to this point, but he's got a good pedigree as well. He's played England age group levels all the way up to under 20, where he'd have played with Flynn Downs and Andre Dezel. So there's good pedigree there. But as you say, I think he's quite likely going to be one of many being discussed at this point. A year left on his contract at Leicester, so a loan isn't impossible either if that ends up being something Ipswich pursue, or if anybody pursues it this summer in League One.
So we talked about central midfield, probably going to need 1, possibly 2 in there. We talked about up front, and I need at least 1, possibly 2 up there, maybe more when you take into account those attacking midfield positions. At least 1 sort of glaring area of the team really that needs an upgrade, and that's the left side, isn't it?
Big area for upgrade this summer, isn't it? They tried so many different How many did we settle on in the end? Wasn't it eight players had a go at it, something like that on that left side? They couldn't find an answer, could they? Talked about an over reliance on Wes Burns, and they're going to need to sort out that balance to get this team functioning to a really, really high level, I think.
Yeah, I think the only other transfer things to talk about so far is in terms of exits has been Hladky, backup goalkeeper, has been linked to Aberdeen. It wouldn't be a huge surprise to see him move on with Walton having that number one spot nailed down. And if that was to happen, then Ipswich would probably have to go out and look for another goalkeeper as well. But that's not at the top end of priorities at the moment. We've got all summer to talk about this. There'll be lots more names to come up. We've got free agents lists to pour through, players that might be available for loan, players on transfer lists. I know there's Twitter and social media is discussing various names as we speak. So, but we got more time to talk about those. Those are the solid links that we can bring you today. And perhaps we'll reconvene in a week or so's time, shall we?